Everyone, and happy St. Patty's Day. Thanks for attending the webinar today. I know that some of you will be going out there and celebrating today, so it's good to celebrate with you and talk about what's new and SAFe. I'll be presenting with my colleague, Michelle Warner. Michelle, why don't you quickly introduce yourself?
Hi, good morning, everyone. He's already wished happy St. Patty's. I'm still thinking about if I need to go change into something green. Been in SPCT for about 4 or 5 years, started in SAFe in 2013. Gosh, that was so long ago. And I'm so excited by this new version and getting to share it with you all. And you'll see why.
All right, thank you. So let's get started. I'm really excited about this release of SAFe. You know, it's not that often that we do .0 releases. The last .0 release was 2 years ago, and 5.0 and 5.1, have lasted over 2 years. And now we're in SAFe 6.0. So you might be wondering, why are we doing a new release of SAFe? That's because we really need to adapt the framework to what's happening in the marketplace. We've all seen what's happened with the pandemic. We've got a very turbulent world right now, economic conditions as well. And what you'll notice is that transformation and digital products are coming out faster now more than ever. We're in the age of digital. However, within this age, we seem to have several ages within it. Just AI itself and machine learning is going to really transform the world. And so is technologies like crypto and many others are just making it so that we have to move faster and learn faster and adapt faster. So that's what SAFe 6.0 is about. If I had one word to describe 6.0, I would say it was flow, flow, and flow. And so we need to always adapt the framework to meet the changing priorities and the challenges that we're having today and be able to compete and always beat the competition. So this new release, SAFe 6, not surprisingly, it has 6 themes. And we'll go through each one of these themes in today's presentation. So this is the new big picture. One of the things that I find about it is some very striking new branding colors, which, at first it was hard for me to get used to these colors because it's a change. Anytime we have a change, everyone initially rejects it. But I tell you that as you go through the framework and then see the new graphics and new images and how consistent everything is in the new framework, I think you'll be very pleased by it. We spend a lot of time not only updating all the articles, but we also spend time on the images and having a consistent look and feel. And it needed it. It's been some time since we've done that. So the very first theme is about strengthening the foundation for business agility. And what you'll see here is at the top of the big picture is where the business agility value stream is. Previously, it was an advanced topic article. So the business agility value stream, if you haven't read about it, I would suggest that you do read about it. It's an important article. And now it has been promoted to the top of the big picture. And you can see it's our way of providing also strategy agility, from sensing the opportunity to developing an MVP to learning, adapting until we actually leverage that business opportunity. The other part of strengthening the foundation was in the foundation element of SAFe. That's the green bar at the bottom of the framework. We call that the SAFe foundation. And what you'll notice here is that we've added the continuous learning culture, which used to be on the left, and it wasn't in all of the different configurations. So now by moving CLC down to the foundation, every configuration of SAFe that you choose will have CLC as part of that. And because of this new design, we used to have Lean Agile leadership in the middle, but now we've moved it to the head of the foundation. And you'll also see that there's a new SPC icon And that was reimagined, the icon, because before it looked like a teacher teaching a course, and SPCs do a lot more than just teaching courses. They're the change agents within the organization. So that's why those changes were made. And every article on the foundation here has been updated, and we'll go into some of those changes in a few moments. So you'll also notice that the House of Lean, if you go into the article on lean thinking, has been changed. House of Lean has been retired, not because it wasn't useful, but to make room for some new thinking. And now we represent lean thinking by these 5 principles: precisely specifying value by product, identifying the value stream for each product, making value flow without interruptions, letting the customer pull value from the producer, and pursuing perfection. And of course, the Agile values stay the same. However, lean thinking is now represented by these 2 things. And because of that, we also had to do something with some of the things in the House of Lean. So as you may recall, in the House of Lean, we had a respect for people and relentless improvement. And now those have been elevated to a core value. And built-in execution and built-in quality and program execution were phased out as core values because they're represented well else in the framework, such as in the BIQ article, the built-in quality article. And we are phasing out the word program. And we also felt that as a core value, program execution was a little bit too limited. And so we felt that these core values were now more representative of what a core value is, as opposed to how we execute. We've also updated the principles. Every principles article has had some refactoring to it, but in particular, you may remember Principle 6 as these 3 principles in one: visualize and limiting WIP, reducing batch sizes, and managing queue lengths. Oh boy, that was a lot to say. Now we've just simplified it down to make value flow without interruptions. And what's nice about that also ties in to the lean thinking principles. Make value flow without interruption is also a lean thinking principle. And in here, we'll also talk about that we actually define flow. We also talk about the 8 properties of flow and flow accelerators, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes.
Hey, Richard. So
Yes.
this is my second favorite change.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So, because it's one of the questions I get asked most often is, I don't really understand what we mean by flow. So I like that we've actually gone more in depth within the framework and talk about it more and have pictures that help for us graphical people.
Great. And we've also updated the implementation roadmap. One of the things that you'll see that is no longer here is we had the starting points of ad hoc, agile, or waterfall. And we recognize that's not where people always are starting from. So we didn't want to limit that. So we removed that off the implementation roadmap. And we've also added the SAFe executive workshop to the Go SAFe step, which is pretty important. We also now have a new course called Leading in the Digital Age. And you can read more about that at the scaledagile.com website. We've renamed the organize around, we've renamed this step from identify value streams in arts to organizing around value. You'll also notice that we've put the workshop up top here. That's a big part of organizing around value, is using value stream identification workshop. So that's why that change was made. And also we felt that organize around value was the more important topic, not just about identifying value streams in arts, but we need to organize our development teams around the products and services in which our organizations sell. You'll also notice that extend to the portfolio was renamed to enhance the portfolio. And why is that? Well, that's because we recommend that organizations, when they start their SAFe transformation, also begin implementing lean portfolio management, which you'll see at the top. In SAFe 5.1, we made the change to edit at the top. So therefore, we said to ourselves, you know what? This step is more about enhancing the portfolio. So maybe when you first started launching SAFe, you may have implemented a portfolio kanban and start implementing portfolio epics, but you may not have adopted all of lean portfolio management, and that's why we call enhance the portfolio. We also have a new and updated accelerate step. And accelerate does not represent the end of the journey. It actually represents the beginning of a new journey to continuous improvement. And how do we accelerate the benefits that we get from SAFe? How do we accelerate the value? So we provide a lot of new guidance on how you can continue on improving your SAFe implementations. And don't forget, when we launch new trains, we can't forget about the old trains. So that's what this step is now all about. You also notice that I talked about the SPCs at the bottom of the foundation. And you'll notice that every role in the framework is now represented by what we call a responsibility wheel. That's this thing here that you're seeing on the right. And one of the reasons why we've renamed the SPC to SAFe Practice Consultant is because we are phasing out the word program. There's nothing wrong with the word program, and large organizations may still have programs, like your very large companies like CVS and large insurance companies, banking, the Boeings of the world, the Lockheed Martins. But we felt that the word program still has that traditional connotations of project and program management. So that's why we decided to phase out the word program, and the word program has been mainly replaced by art. And we'll talk about that at the end, about all the terminology changes. So we have every role now is represented by these wheels, which show what their main responsibilities are. And each article is written using these as an outline. The next thing we thought about was we really need to update our guidance about roles and responsibilities in SAFe. This is probably one of the areas that I get asked about a lot. What does this role really do? And when we developed these role articles many years ago, they were originally written to be job descriptions. So you'll see it was almost like a random list of bullets that was in the article, but it really didn't explain what the role did and what its responsibilities were. So every responsibility and role that you see highlighted has been updated. We also have done a similar treatment for Agile release trains and solution train as well, even though it's technically not a role. We kind of treat it like a role in the framework. So here are the other responsibility wheels, and we've gotten a lot of good feedback. In fact, I think, Michelle, you told me this is one of your favorite features.
I said this is my favorite one. So the other one was my second favorite one.
Okay.
Yep.
So why is it your favorite? What makes it?
Well, it's actually, besides flow, and normally I get that question when I'm teaching, so first introducing. When we actually start a transformation, one of the first things that people always want to know is what are my responsibilities, right? And we try to move away from races because they're so constricting, and people don't always want to play outside of the racy. And these roles you sometimes have to play outside. So these help so much in the transformation. And not just that, but again, I'm a graphical person, so graphics always help.
Yeah. And we actually have a poster of all these responsibility wheels in one PDF. Mm-hmm. And if you've attended today's webinar, we're going to share that with you. I think that's pretty cool. It looks great together, mm-hmm. especially when there's no text on the left, but it's very visual. It's very easy to see what the responsibilities are. And remember, there are going to be responsibilities in your context, which is going to be different than what we're showing here, because SAFe is a framework and it's meant to be adapted. It's not dogma. It's not the Bible. It's not the Quran. It is meant to be adapted to your context. But we feel that these are the main responsibilities of the different roles. You can see here we have a we've renamed Scrum Master now to Scrum Master Team Coach. Wow, that's quite a change. And so one of the reasons why we've done that is because Scrum Masters may be also dealing with improving the flow of value. In fact, the bottom one here, somehow the text got cut off. It says improving flow. So the responsibilities of the Scrum Master go beyond what you see when you just have a single Agile team and you're working in an Agile release train. And often the role that is on that team is doing more than just being a Scrum Master. They're also being a team coach. So now organizations have a choice of whether to call it a Scrum Master or team coach, depending which best suits their context. There's also been some rejection of the word Scrum Master in some circles, not liking that word, especially if you were a project manager before. Going from a project manager to Scrum Master, some people didn't like that new name. So we've provided some flexibility in the framework. Use either which better suits you. And this doesn't mean that we're reducing our support for Scrum. In fact, we've doubled down on our support from Scrum, as you'll see in this presentation. The third theme is about accelerating value flow. And one of the things that you'll see here at the top is value stream management has been added to the big picture. It used to be an advanced topic, and now it is prominently on the big picture. You'll also notice that there are 4 new articles: portfolio flow, solution train flow, art flow, and team flow. And one of the things that Michelle mentioned really struck home with me, and that is about what is flow. And if you do a search in Google, it's hard to find. I don't think we could find any definition of what it means to have flow. And so our team defined it, and we say that a flow occurs when there's a smooth, linear, and fast movement of work product through the steps of the value stream. But that may not be enough. So we decided to examine what are the things that constitute flow. So what you're seeing here are the 8 properties of flow. So now we have a full definition of when flow exists and what are the properties of these flows. So, for example, work in process is an element of flow. Workers, people, bottlenecks are part of flow. Queues and batches and handoffs are different aspects of flow. Now that we have defined what the 8 properties of flow, what the really cool thing is, we're able to look at how can we accelerate the flow, for each of those different properties. And that's what this represents. So these numbers 1 through 8 correlate to the 8 flow properties on the prior slide. So every accelerator allows you to accelerate that particular property. And these items here in this accelerator, you can read more about them in the new Principle 6, Make Value Flow Without Interruptions. And each of these 8 principles is described in those 4 articles. So these 8 flow accelerators, I'm sorry, not principles, these 8 flow accelerators can be applied differently at the portfolio, at the solution, at the art and team parts of SAFe. And they'll have different things and how you apply them and how you recognize you have a problem and what you can do about it. So that's what this slide is about. It's just summarizing that we have the flow articles here. And we've also have added more flow to SAFe. And we've described more of the kanban method for teams, because teams in SAFe can either use Scrum or they can use kanban. We've renamed the kanban method to SAFe Team Kanban method because we apply it directly to SAFe. Teams can use SAFe Scrum, SAFe Team Kanban, or a hybrid of their liking. SAFe Scrum. So you may recall that this used to be called Scrum XP. And we've decided to move the word XP out of the word Scrum, as it sometimes was confusing. Sometimes people objected to combining XP and Scrum, But what I found is that all organizations are using XP practices, whether or not they realize it. And the State of the Agile survey confirms that most people are using XP practices, though they don't necessarily like the name XP. And so we have these diagrams for the SAFe Scrum cycle, and also how does Kanban work within SAFe? That's what this was showing here. So Kanban teams do plan. They may not do iteration planning, but they do typically a backlog replenishment meeting. Kanban teams don't always meet every day. They may sync once a week, or they may meet every day. It's their choice. Of course, they participate in system demos and they produce an increment at the end. So we've now described how to use Kanban specifically in SAFe, and we've done the same for Scrum. Of course, Kanban teams often use the Scrum events such as iteration planning, iteration review, iteration retrospectives, and so on, but it's not required that you do that in SAFe. The SAFe Scrum article also provides guidance on how you can use Kanban and Scrum together. Every backlog in SAFe is now managed by a Kanban system. We've also added a new advanced topic article called Applying Kanban in SAFe. So how is this different? Well, here we're going to describe what is a Kanban board. What are the elements of a Kanban board? What are the classes of services, and what does that mean? How do you establish the Kanban board? So you'll see in the right corner, we're showing you how you can identify the steps in your development value streams and use that as the initial steps for your Kanban board. And then finally, there are 4 Kanban systems in SAFe, and we describe how these different Kanban systems work together to allow a fast flow of work. And you'll notice that some of the work comes from the top down. Other work comes from the teams themselves, and other work comes from the art or a solution train. So this is not meant to be a top-down system. However, when you have things like epics, you want them to be able to flow through the system very quickly, and that's why we have this enterprise Kanban system. We can also visualize how work goes from the top to the bottom, but again, we're not constrained to go from the top to the bottom. In fact, you want a mixture of work coming from local context as well as from the top. We have a brand new built-in quality article, and we talk about built-in quality in 2 aspects. One, that there are practices, and there are also different domains. So there are certain basic Agile practices. You'll see that that's the bottom Lego of all these different practices. So some of the basic Agile practices include shifting learning left, pairing and peer review, collective ownership and T-shaped skills, artifact standards and definition of done, and workflow automation. And each of those will be applied to the different domain. So for example, domains are business functions. You may have software applications. So notice that there is business quality standards in the business functions domain, while there is Agile software development quality in the software applications domain. For IT, we also add IT systems quality, and for hardware, we add Agile hardware engineering quality. And finally, for cyber-physical systems, we'll add that additional Lego block along with applying hardware engineering quality. So you're going to find a lot of the great practices there, including the XP practices, which were kind of munged together in the old Scrum article, SAFe Scrum article. And we tried to be true to the Scrum guide, but SAFe goes beyond just small Agile teams, and that's why we call it SAFe Scrum. And what you're seeing here is a new value stream management prominently at the portfolio, because in SAFe, we manage a portfolio of value streams. Today, we mainly still talk about managing a portfolio of development value streams, but we've also elevated operational value streams, and we'll also talk about the fact that you can have combined portfolios with operational and development value streams. I think everyone has seen that, and that's something that should be done. Value stream management, it anchors flow. It is really important to the new SAFe principle of making flow, making value flow without interruption. The value stream management office is new to SAFe. However, in the past, we talked about having a APMO. So now we have a value management office, and it has different responsibilities. So I'm not going to go through each one of these because that's a lot to speak about. We're going to have a whole course just on that.
We do actually.
And Michelle is actually doing a presentation in the SAFe Summit in Europe just about that particular topic, and you'll be able to watch a replay of that. The next aspect is enhancing business agility with SAFe across the business. So you may have remembered this business and technology icon at the bottom, and it started providing guidance about how do we apply SAFe outside of IT. And we have really strengthened this guidance. And you will see that now we have 5 different patterns for expanding SAFe beyond IT. For example, you may have a business-enabled art. And that's really how art should work. You know, you have a regular Agile release train, but when you do your value stream identification, you also identify what are the business people that we need for our art to work properly. Then there's the Agile business train. And this is a business train that it creates and operates the business solution themselves. So think about an application that is kind of self-contained, and the business unit itself has developers in their unit, and they develop the solution, and they also offer it to customers directly. Then there's this notion of an Agile executive team. So we feel that the leadership team, your top executives, should be using Agile methods and Agile practices. Now, they may not operate exactly like a Scrum team. They may operate like a Kanban team, but more importantly, the mindset is Agile. And by them acting in an Agile manner, it sets an example for the rest of the organization. It also gives them empathy about how Agile teams work. There's also a Agile business function, and there's also a combined portfolio, which includes both operational and development value streams. But in my mind, operational value streams and development value streams were always something that was thought about together in a portfolio, but now we're being a little bit more explicit, and you'll see more guidance about that come down the pike. You know that we're always inventing SAFe. So as we've just launched SAFe, we're continuing to advance the framework even as we speak. The 5th theme is building the future with AI, big data, and cloud. These 3 technologies are absolutely essential to your organization. And I'm very big on artificial intelligence. In fact, prior to joining Agile Rising and after leaving Scaled Agile, I worked for Digital AI as a chief scientist for artificial intelligence value stream management. It's going to change the world. I don't think it's going to replace people, but it's going to change the world. It's going to be a really important tool for organizations and in your product offering. Same with big data. Being able to mine that data and now using artificial intelligence to mine that data is huge. And if you haven't moved your infrastructure to the cloud, well, you're going to really get behind. So in SAFe, we have 3 articles. The AI is at the top of the big picture because we believe it requires portfolio governance. You can almost say the same about big data and cloud, but we've certainly thought that AI needed more governance, whereas big data and cloud have been around longer. So we think that all organizations need to be using these 3 technologies, and the cloud is absolutely essential. And I'm sorry, I meant that big data governance is required at the portfolio, and then AI is on the spanning palette. The 6th theme is about delivering better outcomes. with measure and grow and OKRs. So one of the first things that I think is exciting is that you now see OKRs on the big picture, and it's on the spanning palette. And metrics was also changed. It was changed from metrics to measure and grow. And as I just described, AI is on the spanning palette as well. So metrics, as you may know, has 3 domains to it. Measuring outcomes. Do our solutions meet the needs of our customers and business? And too many organizations today are just measuring outputs. Guess what? When you develop a feature, that is still an output. And sometimes features result in business outcomes, and sometimes they don't. So it's important that we measure what business results are we getting from the work from our development teams. We also need to know how quickly that we are developing our outputs that result in outcomes. So there are 4 or 5 flow metrics that you can use for that, which are part of the measure and grow article. And yet another area is how proficient is the organization in providing agility. So we have a business agility assessment, and then we have assessments for the essential level, for solution trains, for the portfolio, to ensure that you are following the practice in a way that is going to provide you with the most amount of agility, and yet that you're doing the things that are going to really move the needle in your organization. And you need to know where you're at today so that you can know where do we need to improve tomorrow, and what are the highest priority things. And so you can also use WSJF for the items that you identify as improvements to see which improvement items that you should be working on first. Michelle, it looks like you are about to say something over there.
No, sorry, I just got asked a question that I'm like, I don't know the answer to that. Sorry.
Okay, I thought I noticed your face. All right, so when it comes to applying OKRs, we believe that organizations need to be careful about this. What we don't want to have is to have 2 systems of objectives. So we believe that OKRs belong in 3 places in the framework. First of all, OKRs is a terrific way on how to express our strategic themes, because there's an objective to a strategic theme. You want to measure, are we making any progress to that strategic theme so we have key results? So we think it's very appropriate there too. The second place is for epics. How do we know that we are achieving the business outcomes that we need? Those also can be measured with key results, specifically with leading indicators. Also, the transformation, it's always difficult to know, are we making progress on the transformation? While the assessments are great to understanding how well that you're adapting or adopting the practices, it doesn't necessarily tell you whether you're getting the business outcomes for the work that you're doing with SAFe. And if you've got 100 trains or 200 trains launched, that doesn't really matter unless you're moving the needle in the business. So we thought that OKR specifically would be helpful there too. So these are the 3 areas which we think that OKR should be focused on for now. We're not saying that you can't use them elsewhere, but one particular area that we have a concern about is using OKRs to replace PI objectives. PI objectives are particularly something that the objectives that we want to achieve over the next PI. And we don't want it to be conflicting with the overall arching goals of the strategic themes. We want to align our PI objectives with OKRs. OKRs are not the easiest thing to write and to write them well. And we don't want that to take too much time of the PI planning trying to document really good OKRs. That said, feel free to experiment. It's a framework. So if you find that using OKRs for PI objectives works for you, that's great. But we're saying be careful with that. We really want to align OKRs and not cascade them down from the top. So you can imagine if we had OKRs for the Agile release train and we had OKRs for our PI objectives, well, which ones should I be working on? Which are the most important things? So that's why we're being a little bit cautious now about applying them to PI objectives. Other important changes is about the SAFe backlog as an example. You'll notice that the vertical label for the word kanban is no longer on the big picture. And that's because we have merged the guidance for backlogs and kanban together. They're one article, which simplifies things. And every backlog in SAFe, whether you're using Scrum, XP, or Kanban, is managed by Kanban. So all backlogs are managed by Kanban. And you may have recalled that we had a state in the Kanban system called Backlog. And now we've changed that to Ready because all Kanban systems are managed by Backlog. And we wanted to reduce the confusion between the word backlog as a state and the word backlog as something that we manage the backlog with. For Scrum, they still use the term backlog because after they have planned their iteration, that becomes their iteration backlog. So that's the one exception. The next thing is enterprise solution delivery. And there are two main things which have changed. We have learned a lot over this past several years, especially in the past 2 years, as have we been working with organizations like Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Rockwell, and many others, really large DoD contractors and very large insurance companies and banks, that they quite didn't do pre-PI planning and post-PI planning the way we had it in the framework. So based upon our learnings, we've updated this. It's now called pre-plan and coordinate and deliver. So you'll find if you read these articles, the guidance has evolved to reflect how these large organizations really do their planning, their preparation before PI planning for solution trains, and how do they coordinate and deliver after that planning has occurred. The next thing is about the terminology changes that I mentioned. We're going from an Agile program management office to a value management office. And all those terms that had program in it are now called ART. So it's ART backlog, ART planning board, ART epics instead of program epics. We do ART execution instead of program execution. And perhaps the one that has a little bit of controversy is going from the word program increment to planning interval. Again, one of the impetuses for changing this was because we were phasing out the word program. But we also, the other big reason why we changed it to planning interval is that we just don't provide an increment at the very end of the PI. We release on demand. We develop on cadence and we release on demand. So changing the terminology to planning interval really acknowledges that a PI is about having planning on a cadence. And again, the increments can come every single iteration. We can do increments several times, even within an iteration. So increments happen all throughout the PI, just not once. And we thought that was an important change. And as I mentioned earlier about changing it from, say, program consultants to, say, practice consultants, because it's more than just about the Agile release train. It's about a whole bunch of other things. It's about lean portfolio management. It's about lean systems engineering and Agile product delivery and so much more in our competency. So that's another reason why we made that change. And we made similar changes for the solution term as well. It's now solution architect instead of solution architect engineer, because that was always confusing. Okay, is it solution architect or solution engineer? And in speaking to these very large companies that have solution engineers or solution architects, they felt that the term solution architect worked equally well for solution engineers as well as solution architect. So we just simplified that name, and all those other terms we've just included train in it, so that, what is a solution backlog? What we're really talking about is the backlog of the solution train, not just some amorphous, the word solution. So you'll see that terminology change as well. I think it's a good change. And you'll see other things that we've changed as well. We no longer call it a daily stand-up, we call it a team sync. And that's because not only do Scrum teams sync, but so do Kanban teams sync. The LPM team syncs, the architects sync. So we thought it made more sense to standardize on the term sync and reflect the different types of syncs that may occur. And also, the term, I think, better describes what the purpose of this event is. The event is meant to coordinate. Typically we're coordinating the upcoming day's work. And, unfortunately, the daily stand-up has gotten the reputation of being a status meeting. And that's because the 3 questions, what did you do yesterday? What are you going to do today? And what impediments do you have? Well, those questions were actually questions that you would ask in a status meeting. So we wanted to get away from that and really get back to the roots. What Scrum really intended to be was for a coordination meeting or sync. And of course, we talked about the Scrum Master can now be called a team coach or Scrum Master, depending upon the context. And we're going to take questions in just a moment. You can read a lot more about what's new in SAFe in the new SAFe Extended Guidance article, which can be accessed from the homepage. You'll see a big banner. The SAFe website has now taken the place at scaledagileFramework.com, but the old version is still available at v5.scaledagileFramework.com. And that will remain online until we have the next version of SAFe, which could be a SAFe 6.1, it could be a SAFe 6.5, or who knows, if it's major enough, it might even be SAFe 7. We honestly don't know at this point. There's a good fact that you can FAQ that you can read, which I've also provided there. And if you didn't watch the launch announcement from Scaled Agile, this is an incredible launch announcement. The production was as good as like a Hollywood Oscars. It was quite a production. So I think you'll enjoy that, and I think you'll enjoy a lot of the graphics that they did for that announcement as well. So now we'll open it for questions, and Michelle, perhaps you can be the person who moderates and throws out the questions there.
Sure. I've been answering the questions as we go along, so I was thinking that we would get to turn on and see who wants to ask a question themselves, maybe, because I've been answering the questions in the chat.
Sure.
So I just, sorry, but one thing that has come up, and it's always a question that we get, is the upgrade path. So I just want to cover that a little bit quickly, if that's okay. Yeah. So if you have 5.0, if you have the SAFe certification 5.0, that's still good. You have to go in and just read some stuff and take a small 20 question quiz, and then you'll get upgraded to 6.0, and there's no additional cost. If you're at SAFe 4.0, then you've actually got to upgrade to 5, and then from 5 you go to 6. If you're anything prior to 4.0, like SAFe 3, then you've got to take a SAFe 6 class. So
all right, shall we open up the mics and let people ask questions in real time? Can we do that, Julia?
So we can't unmute, but the chat is open now. So people can ask in the chat or in the Q&A.
So Michael Doherty has asked a question. Would you dive a little deeper into coordinate and deliver versus post-PI planning?
Yeah, so one of the things that we found was that the pre-PI planning just didn't happen a day before the PI planning event, where each art plans on their own. it often happens maybe even 6 weeks in advance, and there might be multiple preparation meetings that happen. And it's important to distinguish that pre-PI planning, or pre-plan as we're calling it now, was meant for solution trains. That doesn't mean that you can't have preparation prior to PI planning. It's just that that particular guidance was meant for solution trains. So that's one of the biggest changes, is that it's all about doing the preparation and coordinating the work that will be done over the next PI. And then the coordinate and deliver is more about the coordination that occurs after we do our PI planning. We may need to adjust our plans. We may need to adjust how we're going to tackle something. We may need more coordination in what we're going to do. A lot of that is also covered in the coordinate and deliver article, but the post or the coordinate and deliver goes a little bit more into that for solution trains. So it's a very deep topic, and I don't think I could do it justice on this call right now without spending the remaining time on that. What other questions do you have?
So Micro Doherty says, so post-PI planning is gone?
Yes, it's been replaced by coordinate and deliver. And as I mentioned, it now better reflects how organizations do that in these large organizations, because it wasn't quite like we described it in the article. So as we've gotten these learnings, we've put that into the framework. So we work with people like Debbie Bray and many others who are really familiar with solution trains. You know, like solution trains, they require continuous alignment. The artifacts that solution trains, might create, which might be a little bit different. How do we create alignment across solution train artifacts? Having a solution roadmap, the solution intent, solution vision. There might be a little bit more coordination for doing the planning for the solution train. Solution train is a planning is a big event. And then we also talked about the solution train PI, the solution train planning board in a little bit more detail, and how it uses capabilities and how do we show the relationships between the capabilities and dependencies and different milestones. So it just goes a bit deeper into it, as well as talking about integrating more frequently and synchronizing more frequently. We also talk about things like a RTE sync, a product manager sync, and an architect sync as well, and talking about how we can coordinate releases across trains. So it's just a bit deeper guidance on how we do that. And it also includes things like coordinate and deliver.
Can I,
inspect and adapt for a solution train. Go ahead, Michelle.
Yeah, I want to add a little bit more to that. I always found the language of pre-PI planning and post-PI planning to be very phase-gate-ish. And people seem to interpret that as it's only one meeting right before, like the week before, during the if iteration, right? And one of the things that I've always done when especially in large organizations, is that it's continuous. You're continuously doing pre-PI planning, you're continuously doing all this stuff. So I'm really happy to see that the language has changed and moving away from this. I'm not using
Once and done type language.
Gate-ish kind of language. So
yeah, and it was certainly never meant to be phase gates in SAFe. And the same goes with the post-PI planning.
Yep.
Post-PI planning is just too limiting. All the things that I just mentioned, we need a lot more coordination after PI planning than just adjusting our PI plans after all the arts have planned. It's also about the synchronization that needs to happen, following up on items in the roadmap and making sure we're aligned on our solution intent, and so much more. So the article is so much richer and so much deeper, thanks from the help of people like Robin Yemen and Rebecca Davis and Debbie Bray and more. What other questions might you have?
Nothing else so far.
Oh, can I talk about the combined portfolio?
Yep.
Sure, absolutely. And I'm going to actually bring up the framework. Gotta move some things out of the way.
So this is the combined portfolios, the portfolio portfolios, right?
Not quite,
Okay.
but that certainly could be something that is part of it. So you'll see here the combined portfolio. And what we're talking about here is that in SAFe, we've always talked about that a SAFe portfolio is a portfolio of development value streams who create solutions. And now what we're saying with the combined portfolio, it's a portfolio which includes both development and operational value streams. So some of the things that when we think about it in that context, we start to really think about them working together in a much more integrated way. It's not an operational value stream throwing requirements over the wall to development value streams, or development value streams throwing over the wall functionality to operational value streams. And that the development value streams need to be really cognizant of what results that we're getting for the operational value streams. We want there to be a lot more synergy between the operational and development value streams. And some of the metrics that we had before were more focused on the development value streams and operational value streams. So we need to be concerned about, return on investment, revenue, customer retention, customer satisfaction, and all that. And so what we're doing with a combined portfolio is to able to better align development opportunities with how the operational value streams do their work, be aligned on our funding, be aligned on our strategy, and be aligned on the flow of epics through the portfolio backlog. For me, I've always thought of it like the way it's being shown in this picture. And I think over time, you will see that the big picture will look like this figure here in figure 5. And so we also have an example of what a combined portfolio might look like. And each of those 5 patterns is described in this article. The other thing that I didn't mention earlier in my description of what's new, and that is we've given new life to a whole bunch of articles that we've had in the framework for a while. And that's the extended guidance in SAFe. And we used to call these advanced topics. So when you go to this page now, these are only topics which have been created by Scaled Agile. The topics or guidance from people within the community are on a separate community page. And what you're going to see is that we refreshed all of these articles. So we've rewritten the language, we've made the graphics better, we have better descriptions of things today. We give examples of what non-functional requirements are, the types of NFRs. And so there are a lot of gems within each of these extended guidance articles. And if you haven't read them in a while, they are so much better written today. They have so much better graphics. And there's just a ton of new value within the extended guidance, which you come from the Read More. And we still have the community contributions in another area, which I'm excited about, is the SAFe Beyond IT guidance. That comes from our fellows who have written about their experiences with different things, such as doing finance in SAFe, doing a large enterprise transformation at an insurance company, Agile HR, talent, etc. So please take time to read those. Those are equally important things. So we are going to end our call with a poll. And Julia, if you can facilitate that, that would be awesome.
Yep, just launch the poll. If everyone could please answer.
So the poll says, would you be interested in a short class to help you recertify for SAFe 6? Of course, you can recertify on your own, and you'll get a learning plan if you haven't gotten so already. And you can go through all the enablement materials. But we're envisioning for this class is be able to interactively ask questions as we go deeper into the topics. Then you'll see what's in the SAFe enablement. And by the way, the SAFe enablement is wonderful, but people learn in different ways. Some people like to watch videos. Some people like to have an instructor-led course, and so on. How are we doing at the poll, Julia?
It's like just about everyone answered.
Okay, let's give the drum roll and see what the results are. Okay, so we had 62% said yes. Well, that's great. And we'll definitely talk amongst our team about doing that. And we thank you very much. And if you have not taken implementing SAFe in a while, let's say that you haven't taken implementing SAFe since SAFe 4.6, or you're not an SPC, we're also holding an SPC class next week. So we still have some seats that are left. And if you'd like to join, please just sign up on the training calendar for Agile Rising. Thank you so much for attending today's webinar. And we hope you found this to be really useful and that you'll think about working with us at Agile Rising on your future engagements. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye all.